Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to what I think is episode 15 of Chairboys Live. This series started in lockdown. Remember way back when, many weeks. Welcome to what I think is. And we had some players on. We were talking about how everyone was keeping themselves busy during lockdown. We had some pets on the screen. We had Shirley arrive. Football seemed a long way off back then. And as the episodes have progressed, so as Wycombe Wanderers' story of the 2019-20 season, 1 week on from that fantastic night at Wembley, I'm delighted to say we are back with another episode with three very special guests lined up. So thank you to everyone who has been commenting so far. We flashed some of them up just before we went live. We have fans in Brazil. Hello to Bruno. There was a chat from Pakistan who posted just a little bit further up. And thank you to our regular viewers as well, Robin Gardner, Hayden, Lee Salmon, also to Lee, to Mark Hampson, Susie, Paul McLeod, Barry Washington Childs, you were a guest on one of our early shows, Dan Berryman. Ed, I like this comment. Let's flash this one up. Live from Adams Park, the home of Championship football. And today on this episode, we're going to be learning a little bit more about what that means. What does Adams Park mean when it's hosting Championship football? And what are some of those changes that are to come? David Alderman is Championship. Chairboys Live is Championship. It certainly is. And we'll be looking to continue this show right the way through to when the new season starts. Thank you to Adam, to Rob as well, watching us live for the first time. And of course, many of you watching this will be watching it on the later rerun. This will remain on YouTube for the rest of the time. We are in a higher league than Peterborough. Well pointed out, Nathan. So let's bring some guests into the room. As you know, Wycombe Wanderers this season, a historic year for many, many reasons, but one of them was the introduction of the Kuig family into the club as majority shareholders. For the previous 7 years, Wycombe Wanderers Trust had steered this club out of very choppy waters in the early days, the transition of ownership, an early change of manager, of course, with Gareth Ainsworth coming in 2012, and all the way through to 2019. And ultimately, when the deal was done early in 2020 for the Kuigs to come in as majority shareholders, it was Wycombe Wanderers Trust who were the ones to steer this club on its onward journey further forward up into League One. And now, of course, we face life in the Championship. So I'm going to introduce all at once, please welcome Trevor Stroud, David Cook, and David Smith. Afternoon, gentlemen. How are we all?
Good afternoon. Very good, thank you.
Good, thank you. Afternoon, everyone.
All massive smiles on faces, and I'm sure they haven't been removed since I had a look. It was 9:25 p.m. I think when the final whistle went last Monday. And I mean, Trevor, I'm going to come to you first. I mean, talk us through your reactions, your emotions when referee Rob Jones finally blew his whistle at the end of 5 minutes or 5 hours of stoppage time, whatever it felt like, to make Wycombe Wanderers a Championship club. I can't hear you. I don't know if anyone else can. David, can we hear Trevor?
I can't. No.
Trevor, if you dial out and dial back in again, hopefully your audio will come through. There you go. How about now? We still can't hear you, Trevor. If you can dial out and dial in again, we'll have a go. David Smith, let's come to you. Your reactions come full time last Monday evening.
Hard to put it into words, really. I mean, hard to believe, really, and I think this was probably everybody's reaction who had the huge privilege to be there, and certainly I'm sure those who were watching it at home. We'd all thought it was just about possible, but did we really believe it? And the boys on the field did, clearly. They were confident that they could do it. I think I couldn't quite shake away out of my mind the memories of the end of the last playoff game and how close we'd got to winning that game, and then it just slipped away at the last minute. So I think we all knew that you couldn't really relax until the final whistle had gone, but when it did, what an extraordinary feeling. And I think, I'm not ashamed to admit, I had tears in my eyes, and I think I'm sure a lot of people did. Extraordinary, just amazing. And it meant so much to the lads, and I think that was to see what they had achieved for themselves as well as for the rest of us was just fabulous, really. So proud of them.
David Cook, if I come to you, I think by my reckoning, you were appointed to the board of directors of the football club in, I think it was October 2013, because you and I actually shared that date. Now, our first season on that board was testing, to say the least. If we recall that first season, ending in that day at Torquay. I mean, if you look back now at that journey of where the club has come in that time, if somebody had said to you on that first day in October, you'd be, involved with a championship football club in just a few years' time, it would have been unthinkable, wouldn't it? Yes,
it would have been unthinkable. Can you hear me?
I can, yeah. You're okay, yeah?
Good. Yes, it certainly would have been unthinkable. If you go back to the last game of the season with Lincoln City, for instance, at that stage, we were hoping and praying that we would stay in the Football League. And the same was true, of course, when we went to Torquay. And before my appointment to the football club board, I was already a trust director. Now, this is a story that has to be told. Trevor Stroud has to accept responsibility for this. I'd got to know Trevor through a mutual friend. And we had a few drinks in the Via Suite from time to time. And on one occasion, Trevor said to me, why don't you stand to be co-opted onto the trust board? We meet once a month, we have a bit of a laugh, and we have a few beers. And I fell for that, hook, line, and sinker. As it turned out, from memory now, we met certainly more than once a month. We didn't have many laughs, and we had more than a few beers. But to be where we are now is just unbelievable.
Trevor, let's try your microphone. Are you? Let's see if you come through loud and clear. Are you there? Trevor, are you with us? Oh, Trevor, it must be your microphone. You're not on mute, so... No, we're still struggling with you, Trevor. You have to make sure your laptop allows access to your microphone.
Is that any better?
Oh, here we go. We're on. Trevor's all right.
Is that it?
Here we go. We're on.
Actually.
Trevor, let me take you back to, I think it would have been May last year. I wasn't privy to the conversation, but I imagine it went something like this with Gareth. Well done on keeping us in League One. You've done a great job. Times are hard. We're going to have to trim your budget quite substantially just to give the club a fighting chance of survival because of the losses that were being made. So fast forward 14 months and you're there at Wembley watching us reach the championship. A quite unthinkable journey that the club has made in those 14 months.
It is. And I mean, I go back to that day in Gareth's office. And yeah, you tell a manager he's losing 40% of his budget, which would have taken us down to bottom of League Two, let alone anywhere in League One. And I think he wasn't overly impressed. But I think the most memorable thing I remember is that Richard Dobson was sat on the sofa, and he just said, he'd talk it all in, and he said, "Well, we've done it before, Gaz. We can do it again." And to me, that was typical of the man. And then obviously Rob came in and loaned us some money to be able to go back to the original budget. But to then bring that forward to last Monday, I mean, we have a mantra of never too high, never too low. But I failed miserably on Monday night. I mean, I was so high. I mean, some people have made me seem to be leaping up and down like a demented man at the final whistle. But it was just almost relief and completion of the journey.
David Smith, I'll come back to you. I mean, I think at the start of 2019, off-field matters, I think, tended to dominate over the on-field matters with the consortium, the Americans that were interested at first, and then Andrew Harmon, the local businessman. And then come the end of that season, and obviously form on the pitch had tailed off, but certainly things were looking up in the air, to say the least, about where the future investment was going to come from. When you look back now, and the Kuigs obviously becoming available and known to the club around May, June time and coming into the club, I mean, how much did the trust feel that you've got the right guys in the end?
I think from the first moment that we met Rob, we felt we got the right guy. We hadn't met Pete or any of the rest of the family, but we met Rob. We had a trust board meeting following which Trevor rang Rob and said that we'd like to work with him, and he said, right, I'll be on the plane, I'll see you. I think and by Wednesday he was meeting the full trust board, so within 48 hours he was over here, and pretty much with his checkbook, frankly, and he had such faith in us that he trusted the trust board, I guess, to and Trevor particularly, who had already established a good relationship with him, to deliver on what we said we could do. And I think we in turn trusted him that he was the man that we thought he was. And certainly history so far seems very much to be supporting that. I think we've been extremely fortunate in how it's turned out. And we've got a man who is a real enthusiast. He's a businessman, but it's in all our interests that he's a businessman, because we need the club to be financially stable and to be able to put the time and expertise in it. And I think that's, if there's one big difference between the way that we were able to run the club as a trust and what the Cougs have been able to do, is to find the time and the resources to enable us to develop the club. We were essentially fighting fires, and I think we fought fires remarkably well in the circumstances, but nonetheless that's all we really ever had the time to do. And we'd made a lot of progress in some areas, and David Cook's responsible for a lot of that, but in terms of the business aspects of the club, it was a real struggle. And with Rob and Pete arriving, things were just able to change, and you'll have seen that, within the office, how different it is now.
Absolutely. I'm just going to go to a couple of comments, because there's been some lovely comments coming up along the side here while you guys have been talking. Stuart Barnes recognising the contribution of the trust. David Bassett as well. Robin Gardner, that's quite a long message. I don't think that would all fit on the screen. One I really enjoyed was an expectation that, Trevor, you were going to announce a signing, because obviously you set the bar high with your Anya Dimmer announcement last year. There's nobody waiting in that executive box, is there, that we should know about, Trevor?
No, unless they're under the table. I haven't checked, but no, not yet.
Trevor, I saw a great tweet just a few days ago, somebody who rang into the club, and when the call was answered, it was Pete Couig on the line with typical exuberance and excitement and joy. I think the message of the tweet really was, although the supporter-owned trust, the 100% model has been moved away from, and there is this 25% now that the trust have retained, the club still feels fan-owned. And I think a lot of that is down to the way that Rob and Pete have kind of integrated and as I say, Pete answering the phone and having a chat with a supporter is something that some fans might have felt had been lost once the trust lost its 100% ownership, and that's been key, hasn't it? I suppose in terms of your involvement with the other trust directors in making sure that Rob and Pete and Missy, do integrate with the club and do feel like fans amongst us all.
Absolutely, and Rob goes at length to say that we are still fan owned, and that's great. And certainly the transparency and the conversations we have a monthly board meeting, but we actually have a weekly board catch up at the moment because there's so much going on, and there is complete transparency from there. So we feel part of the group still. And yes, there will be areas where there needs to be debate and discussion, but Rob is very open to that. He will decide in the end, and that's the way it should be. But he is very much open to debate of any decision, which is great.
David Cook, I'm going to come back to you because the past month or so has been challenging, and this is preparing for football as we've never known it before. And I want to take you back first to behind closed doors football, which was unthinkable many, many months ago. And all of a sudden, I remember walking around on the day of the Fleetwood game at home, and their changing room was the Monty's bar where fans normally drink on a match day. We had subs sat in the stand. We had cardboard cutouts. It was very strange experience. And I know you were, one of the lead people behind making sure that the club met all the protocols. How was that all for you? And can you maybe give a couple more examples for the fans that obviously weren't there on the day of just how different Adams Park was, for those visiting?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, even going back to the return to training, there were EFL protocols that we had to follow, and we couldn't move from non-contact training to contact training until we'd satisfied all those protocols. So that was leading up to the 2 Fleetwood games. Certainly behind closed doors and COVID-19 present challenges. We had to, for instance, remove or at least make every other shower head in the showers ineffective. There had to be social distancing in the showers, social distancing in the changing rooms to the extent that we took over not only our own changing room, but the away changing room. So there were challenges there. It meant that Fleetwood had to change somewhere else. It meant that Fleetwood had to shower in temporary showers, which I'm told by Richard Piercy this morning worked extremely well. Then there were other issues during play, of course, that fans that watched the games on TV would have noticed. During every break of play, the corner flags had to be desensitized, as it were, as did the goalposts. That presented all kinds of challenges, and we've learned a few lessons from that, because it's highly likely, of course, that when football returns, certainly for the first month or two, it's going to be behind closed doors. It's going to be almost certainly with reduced capacities, and that in itself presents problems. We have to maintain social distancing, and even though the government reduced the distance from 2 meters to 1 meter, we certainly chose for the semi-final that we would retain the 2 meter social distancing. So that presents problems when we return to football. There's a lot that's being done. There's still an awful lot that has to be done.
Absolutely. And looking ahead now to the championship, and it's pertinent, we're in a meeting this morning, and there'll be many, many more meetings and actions to come out of it before the new season starts. And Trevor, this is where you can contribute as well. Getting ready for the championship isn't just a job for Gareth and the squad up there, because there are some very practical changes around Adams Park that are required. It caught my interest when I was told our press box, which I don't think has seen even a lick of paint since it was installed in 1990, may be upgraded to allow more journalists in. But what are the other kind of developments around the stadium? Well, I suppose including obviously the new infrastructure changes from Landways that Rob and Pete and Missy have introduced the club to this summer.
Yeah, I think the 2 major projects are the Landways project, which is going to give us state-of-the-art Wi-Fi. The other advantage of that is we can link a lot of the other things that previously we've had cables running all around the stadium straight into that Wi-Fi. So that's going to make it very much sort of all connected around the stadium. And then the other side is that we need to upgrade the floodlights, because there's a lux level, as it's called, for measuring the lights. That's a 500 lux in League One. It's 800 in the Championship. And our pylons will not be able to take the extra weight of the bulbs. So we're going to have brand new floodlights, which I've ordered this morning, which will be LED, will be much more controlled, much more focused. So in terms of the surroundings, the light pollution will be a lot lower. So those are the two major areas, but then there's lots of other things sort of that we've got to pick up as well.
David, are you able to expand on that? I'm trying to remember your multi-point list from this morning, which as I say, my mind was brought attention to. I mean, we get 4 camera iFollow coverage next season as well, which will be great. So for all our overseas viewers on iFollow, you'll now get 4 camera coverage, different perspectives of the game. So as I say, that's where my mind was lost. But a few other examples from yourself, David? Yeah,
just a couple of examples, because I can't remember them all right now either. But one would be CCTV coverage. We currently have, I think, 32 cameras in place. With linking into the digital infrastructure that Landways are putting in, we can reduce the number of cameras, yet at the same time achieve better coverage. And not only will the CCTV footage be visible in the control room, but should anyone need to see coverage outside of the control room, then apps on your phone, and this would be restricted to club staff, of course, but apps on the phone, apps on an iPad would allow Gordon or Richard Hebert or anyone else that has that responsibility to see what's happening without having to be in the control room. The other example I can think of is in terms of the public address system. We have, thanks to Rob and the Coolhig family, we already have at Adams Park, not installed, but we have ProSonus speakers, which are really top of the range for entertainment. What we also need are what are called voice alarm coverage. We need voice alarm coverage, and the ProSonus speakers don't provide that. But at a relatively small cost, which will be included and approved within the budget in due course, again, the Landways infrastructure allows us to have voice alarm audio systems, which is very important in terms of getting important messages to all parts of the stadium, should there be a need to do so. So those are just two examples of the kind of thing that we have to do, and the kind of infrastructure that we will have through Landways that will allow us to do those things.
I think it's really exciting how it's going to be a very different experience, I think, for fans when they do come back. Obviously, the only shame is we don't know when that will be and what restrictions might be in place. But there is so much work going in. I'm going to come back to David Smith in a moment, but if there are any questions from viewers, do let us know. This is one from Sue McLeod about having a shop back in town. Now, I think Neil Peters, the new Chief Commercial Officer, has been, I don't think he's slept, actually, since the 3rd of March when he started at the club. He's been that busy. It's been fantastic, certainly, for us on the operational side, to see the interest now in the club from local businesses. And indeed, the Eden Shopping Centre have been in touch and really want to work far more closely with us next year. So there's some exciting news on that to come. But it will all be, down to cost benefit analysis. And obviously running a shop in town comes with the cost of personnel and making sure, particularly with the new online shop that the club has, that it's going to be worthwhile. So love this quote from Lee, actually, about we need a PA system so that people in the back can hear. And I think that's reference just making sure everybody that was watching of all ages and backgrounds was clear on Monday night that we're now a championship club. Question here, probably the most asked question in the past 30 years, or particularly 25 years since the crowds have really been big. In terms of developing Adams Park and making it the best venue that it can be in its current location, obviously, is there any chance of improving the access? Because that I know is on the radar, almost permanently, but there's many challenges in getting there. That's to any.
I think transport is an issue. Getting a second access road isn't going to be a quick thing that we can do, but it has certainly been on the radar, and we are having discussions with the council. We're certainly looking at other transport options in terms of park and ride, more bus access in. I think we've done the analysis that it's likely we're going to have 18 sellouts for away fans once we're allowed to be back to normal. So the 2 or 3 games a season where it's going to be really busy will become the norm. So we have to do something about that, and that is part of the plans we're looking at.
Fantastic. Couple of other questions. Robin Gardner asked about VAR and goal line technology. My understanding is no to VAR, but yes to goal line technology. Is that right, David? Yep.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that's correct. We had it. We had goal line technology for the semi-final. I think the equipment is still there, and one of these days the EFL will send us an invoice for it.
I thought it was bonkers to see, it took virtually 2 days to set up, and it was so meticulous, and the guys had the football on the line and they're taking kind of photos and doing whatever it was with their technology. It was never needed in the game. I don't think we even came close to a call. And let's be clear, Fred's shots very clearly went in and there was no stopping them. A question from Josh just quickly about seeing the trophy down at the ground. So yes, almost on a bit of a whim at the end of last week, we opened up Adams Park to have photos with the trophy here. We just need to be cautious of health and safety protocols and staffing as well. So that's why it's not permanently available. But there will be more opportunities this week. And as I say, we've been talking to the Eden Centre as well about various opportunities, and there may be a chance to have the trophy on display in public down there as well. So keep an eye on that. Kit news is a question from John. I imagine we'll be looking at a launch towards the end of August, I'd have thought. I mean, it's obviously it's a production question, and obviously knowing when the new season will start, but that's certainly in production. Trevor, I don't know if you've got any more on the kit.
No, it is designed, but in terms of the timetable, I think we just need to get now. Once we know when the next season is going to start, then we can start working backwards from that in terms of a timeline, both on the playing side and on the commercial side as well.
David Smith, I'll come to you because you've been sitting patiently while David and Trevor have talked us through recent developments. But I mean, putting your fan hat back on, which I know is quite difficult with all the the business side of the club that is thrown around and takes up so much time and effort. Being a supporter of Wycombe Wanderers in the Championship and some of the names that we're coming up against is going to be a completely new experience and something very exciting as well.
I was talking to a friend yesterday about the last time he and I went to Villa Park. It was in the FA Cup semi-final, and we were a little, what was equivalent of League One, wasn't it? At the time, playing Liverpool. The chances are we're going to be going to Villa Park. We could well be going to Villa Park and playing them in the league there, playing there in a league game. It is really quite hard to believe, but it's going to be so exciting. So many great names, it's kind of what we've all been hoping and dreaming about, and suddenly it's going to happen. And we just hope that the government takes the brakes off in time to enable fans generally to get in to see the ground, to see the game, to get into the ground. So some of the atmosphere in Adams Park is going to be amazing when we have all these, however many, was it 18 games, Trevor, you think?
18 at least 18. I think there'll be a novelty factor as well, because if you remember the first time, there'll be a novelty factor of teams wanting to come here to play in the league. When we played Sunderland 2 seasons ago, it was packed. So I think it may maybe even be harder than 18, but yeah.
When we played Norwich some seasons ago in whichever cup that was, and we entertained Delia, who was charming, absolutely charming. She said something like, "Well, we look forward to hosting you at Carrow Road sometime soon." She didn't think it would. She hoped it wouldn't be this way, but it is.
David Cook, aside from Norwich, which games are you most looking forward to? I mean, you used to get excited about games against Newport County, but it could well be Swansea and Cardiff next year.
Yeah, Cardiff possibly, Swansea possibly. If I'm allowed back into Wales after being absent for so long, I will look forward to those 2 games. And even better when we beat them, of course.
Absolutely. I mean, Ryan Litchfield's made a good point about the potential, if he stays at Derby County, for Wayne Rooney playing at Adams Park in a league game, which we imagined, would probably only ever come in a cup game or a friendly or something like that. But that on its own, when you talk about novelty factor, if Wayne Rooney is playing for Derby and we don't sell out at Adams Park that day, the marketing department needs a bit of a kick up the backside.
I'm sure Gareth will be delighted about going back to Blackburn as well.
Yeah,
which is his team. So we come back to Blackburn is just would be great.
And it's things like not playing in the first and second rounds of the FA Cup.
Yes.
Which
or not being involved in the trophy at all.
Even better.
Chris Harvey's made
what are they?
The question about interest in new sponsors, and I guess not just sponsors, but in general. I mean, I think the news from last Monday has certainly put the club on the map. My phone certainly hasn't stopped ringing from media, both locally, nationally, and internationally. And the impression I get as well is that sponsors are now almost falling over themselves to get here. Is that something that you guys have picked up on as well? Just kind of more interest now in every area of Wycombe Wanderers?
Yeah, I think when you read in pretty much every daily newspaper, there's an article on Wycombe. So interest, as you said, Matt, is worldwide. We are a worldwide phenomenon, as Rob has said we would be.
I think his perception of the international potential has been a significant development. Wouldn't you agree? I mean, I think it goes back to what I was saying before, that there was a lot that we didn't have the time or resources to look at, but that was something that I don't think we ever really considered. But as an internationalist himself, he recognised straight away what that potential was, and has been working hard to develop it and promote it.
Could I mention, Matt? Just going back to the work that has to be done through going up into the championship? It's well worth noting that by the 31st of January, we have to have a fully costed plan for playing in the Premiership.
That word is banned, David.
I won't use it again. Last time.
No, well, it's AFC Bournemouth never thought they'd be talking about life in the Premier League when they were bottom of League Two, having had a points deduction and administration as recently as 2009, I think it was. So their rise up the leagues has been remarkable, and as I've been telling people that seem to be confident that Wycombe stay in the Championship will just be a one-year little holiday for us. I say to people, whatever scenario we find ourselves in, Gaz and Dobbo will have a plan. And whatever that plan is in the Championship, you back them to pull it off, as successfully as they have pulled off plans in League Two and League One. Yeah. Again, there's obviously a lot of questions about the COVID restrictions and what life has looked like, because obviously fans want to be back and enjoying this. And I think the question from Jeremy here relates not just to away fans coming to Adams Park, but the potential for our fans to go to away games, because of course, if the first few games of the season are, Derby away where we've never been, Middlesbrough away where we've never been, there'll be huge demand. Is there any guidance so far from your perspective, maybe to David Cook, that away fans might have the potential to go to those games even if in reduced numbers?
I think the statement that I've heard, not firsthand, but I've heard from the EFL, is that it is up to the home club to decide whether or not away fans can be accommodated, and if so, just how many. So we will have the same issue, we will have the same problem, but it's very much in the hands, as I understand it, of the home club to choose how to manage that.
I think that's fair enough. We shall wait for more guidance on that. Trevor, I'll swing it back around to you and the football side of things, because I know you and Gareth have obviously been very close now for a number of years. How is he, and how busy is he as well? Because, for many people, they'll have just wanted to sink the champagne and get on a beach somewhere to celebrate, but that option is not available to him with a lot of work to do.
No, and I think it's. I mean, plans were already be put in place prior to the final in terms of what if scenarios. But I think the most important thing. So, I mean, I know Gareth has already had targets, which he was looking at in terms of either League One or Championship. And I don't think that don't want to do is to bring in superstars to try and keep us in the Championship when you've got a squad that basically has got us there and is probably more than capable, with a few additions, to keeping us there. I mean, the mantra's back, 55 points. It's exactly the same message as when we were in League One, just that we're in the Championship. And as you say, I wouldn't have put past them that not Gareth, Dobbo, and the rest of the team, both in terms of bringing in the right personnel, bringing them into the fold. Let Bayo loose on them for a while to really bring them in, and I think we'll be there to shock people. I think we'll take us for granted, and you just never know. But if it is for one season, then what a journey. But I just got a suspicion we will go carry on surprising people.
Mm-hmm. And David Smith as well, from a perspective of someone that's been a supporter of the club for such a long time, and then getting involved and seeing, I don't know, the other side of things. Do you ever wish you'd only stayed a fan, or does this side of thing give you more? And I say that because from my experience, obviously I was privileged, so privileged to be able to be at Wembley because of my position. Obviously, granted me that. There have been many games where, I don't know, Chesterfield away where we got promoted. I'd have loved to have been in the Limbs Society behind the goal, throwing myself over seats and all that. And I don't know. Sometimes there may just be a conflict where you think, that you don't need all this. But I suppose recent achievements must give you so much pride that actually you have been able to play a part in more ways than many.
Yeah, it's very interesting. That there were. My introduction to all of this was rather like David Cook recited his that Trevor said, "Would I like to come? Just a meeting once a month, and it's all right and friendly." And the last 2 years, certainly up until we closed the deal in February, from when we first started thinking about the need to get extra outside financing, were not without their stressful moments. And I think I'd be lying if I didn't admit that there were times when I wondered quite what I got myself into. But yeah, I've been a fan for a long time, but I've always been interested in the way the club works and what makes us different to so many other clubs, and we are and have been as long as I've been around the place, and I think we'll continue to be that. So the opportunity to see it more from the inside, I couldn't resist that, and it has been a really, really interesting experience. I mean, the things like, I don't go into the chat rooms anymore. I used to be in the gas room fairly regularly, and I don't go into the chat rooms anymore because you can't. I mean, it's just not right. There is a temptation to go in there and then say too much, and so you just say no. I'm going to stay away. I don't even read it anymore. I did for a while, and it used to make my blood boil, so I stopped. Do I? Yes, at times when I think it would be nice just to be a fan, but actually, it's been a privilege, and when I'll say this in front of these two chaps. When I joined the board, I looked around me and I saw people spending so much time and such huge commitment in keeping the club going, and I still am somewhat in awe of the time that a lot of the trust directors spend on the affairs of the club in the past, now the affairs of the trust, to keep it going, to keep it relevant, and to raise money for the future for when the club needs it. So no, I don't regret it at all. Having this duality of roles, it's been a lot of fun, and has brought with it some immense privileges, such as being at Wembley on Monday, and that was an evening never to be forgotten.
So you're involved with the club as honorary company secretary, which means you're involved in the board meetings.
Yeah.
Now, I imagine you almost being kind of, I don't know, policeman or trying to keep things in order there, because I don't know, Zoom calls that we have with Rob and Missy over in the States often have interruptions from dogs. They often go off in certain tangents, all very amusing. We always get to the point in the end. Give us a little insight into how those board meetings play out. Because, I think it's not just sitting around the table anymore, is it, with a kind of rebellion?
Generally, is probably to see good order and to make sure that decisions are taken properly, and that people, so helping put the agenda together, and then helping the directors who, especially, we've not had a physical board meeting since the takeover. So it's all been done online, and different people have different characteristics and like to deal with issues in different ways, and like to talk or just listen. And so it's a question of trying to keep people on track and helping them reach a decision in the proper way, and that it's taken on sensible grounds. And this is, we're in a relatively unusual situation where Rob isn't the 100% owner of the club. The trust owns 25%, and it has two directors on the board, and so there have not been any disagreements so far, but we have to recognise that there's a potential for disagreement from time to time, and we have to have a means of working through those and reaching compromises and agreements. And I think the board I've sat round a lot of board tables over the years, and I think this board is working very well. I think people are very open, and the discussions are very healthy. So, yeah, it's an interesting role, and with a legal background, I'm also able to bring sort of legal input to some of the discussions and what is and isn't possible from a legal perspective.
Fantastic stuff. Well, I think we're going to close up with one question to each of you, and that is, I really want to bring it back around to football, because we are a football club, and we are all long-time fans of the club. Some of you more than others, let's just put it that way. But there's been a little bit of debate recently about player of the season, and unfortunately we've been denied obviously the usual end of season awards dinner. We are looking at how we replicate that maybe before the start of the new season. But if you go around to each of you, David Cook, I'll start with you. I mean,
thank you.
Many contenders. I think your nationality might give you one allegiance in particular, but who for you has been your standout player of the season?
It's a really very difficult choice to make, because as a whole squad, everyone there has been outstanding. I'm going to go for Anthony Stewart, not just for the huge contribution that he made during the playoffs, but the fact that he hasn't missed a game, was always solid at the back. He's my choice for player of the season.
He played every single minute of every league game, so very, very worthy contender. Trevor, you allowed favourites?
I would agree with David in terms of the whole squad. But for me, having sat in that meeting a year ago with Darius, and sort of him saying to us that he felt guilty about sitting around taking him away without playing, and could he try and rehab with us during the summer to achieve what he has achieved, I think I would have to go with Darius, but it's a close run with virtually the whole squad.
Yeah.
David Smith?
I think it's a testament to the squad as a whole that we're going to come up with three different names. Sorely tempted by Anthony Stewart, particularly given the way he played in the final, but David Wheeler for me. I think David is an intelligent player and a really important part of the forward line and getting the release ball. I think we saw his ability in the air is remarkable. I just love watching him play.
Yeah.
Joe Jacobson, don't worry, I've got your back. Okay,
That's the whole point. There are so many.
Joe would have been my second, and then
I don't know how you can score 12 goals from left back and that just shows the strength of the squad this year. There are so many other contenders. It's any other year, Joe Jacobson would have walked it by Christmas, I think. But there you go. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a wonderful insight into what has been and what's to come. Go on. Just
before we go, I'd just like to put on record. I mean, David Smith was very modest. The amount of work that went into the deal, David Smith, Martin Broughton, to get us to that point, but also right the way through the volunteer base. The guys that come in and do the hedges, the guys that have sold the programs, we would have not got to the point we've got to with Rob if we haven't had the support on a volunteer basis for just so many people. So I'd just like to take this opportunity just to thank everybody, because yes, the people put a little bit more in than others, but it's everybody. The guys that came and cleared the snow to get the game on. There's just so many different things. So just a big thank you and enjoy the ride, basically.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Couldn't have put it better myself. This success has been for every single one of you involved with Wycombe Wanderers Football Club. And we can't wait for you all to be part of it again in 2020-21. So Trevor, David, thank you so much for joining us. We shall do this again some other time. But for now, enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Go and watch some cricket. How are we doing?
23 for 3 was the last I heard with West Indies. So
okay. Good stuff. I shall let you get back to it. All right. Thanks, everyone, for watching. And this will remain on YouTube if you missed any of it, so you can watch it back. But for now, enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week, and take care for now. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.